Far in Module 3, you've had a chance to get a better sense of the overall goal we have in terms of thinking about how we can plan out our program interventions. Think about it this way. We want to make sure that we actually devise our programs in a way that has specific targeted goals and objectives to meet the needs of our intended health population. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit more with you today about some of the things you might have seen in your readings and video modules for this week in Module 3, specifically in terms of the extension between SMART goals and SMART objectives and what's called SMART-T goals and SMART-T objectives. So let's jump in now. What I'd like to do first is give you a better sense of what exactly we're looking at when we're talking about thinking about SMART-T goals. And think about this in terms of the idea of what we originally know as SMART objectives and SMART goals, which is this notion of looking at things in terms of whether they are specific, measurable, time bound, achievable, and relevant, as well as timely. So think a little bit more about how the words and the acronym can extend from SMART to SMART-T, which is adding on this idea of inclusion and equity. So first, what I'd like to do is walk you through 6 of the principles to consider when crafting SMART-T goals. Think about it this way. Your goals are a concrete way to drive results, but without an explicit equity and inclusion component, your goals won't produce better outcomes for specific marginalized or vulnerable communities. So you need to address disparities in a way to create a sense of belonging. Also, SMARTY goals embrace the idea of power and power parity between different types of groups. Who might have less of a voice in the room? Who specifically within a community might already be marginalized in some way or otherwise at risk? You want to think about who may be impacted by a goal and include this in your goals in a way that shares or provides some type of parity of power and also shrinks disparity to lead to more equitable outcomes. So think about it here. We have these 6 principles, the first being convening a diverse group of people to co-design your goals. Who might have that expertise and experience around the specific topic, or in this case, health concern, to help you design those goals? Who might have specific lived experiences that might be needed to help ensure a balanced perspective around the intended health issue? You also want to clarify decision making in terms of your process for final approval. Is it going to be an element of consensus, majority vote, one group, or is there one single person who's going to have the autonomy for the decision-making process? Also, you want to think about not starting with a blank slate. Start with what you have. What types of needs assessment documents already exist? Are there any current or past strategic plans that might exist that could help inform the design of your health intervention? Also, you want to consider designing your goals at multiple tiers or multiple levels. Think about it this way: if it was a pyramid, you would think about your overarching idea, your base foundation. What would be your human capital and human resources or other types of resources that would be necessary? And how would those stagger out at the top of the pyramid to develop and harness your activities? So it's the idea of strategic at the base, operational in the middle, and tactical at the top of your pyramid. Also, you want to think about whether or not there may be templates or worksheets existing already that could be relevant as you sketch out your design process. Also, you want to get a sense of, is there a litmus test of questions that can assess the quality of your intended intervention? Will you be working towards a goal to mitigate potential inequities in the outcomes or the process? Is there a deadline for your goal? Do you need to get input from people who may be impacted by the process of the intervention or the outcomes of the intervention? What is your barometer for success? Also, do you have the capacity, systems, and processes needed to achieve this goal? And in what way will the goal represent significant progress towards your intended mission? I'd also like to talk to you a little bit more about an example that actually feeds itself very well to some of the insights that you learned in your Module 3 notes. So think about it this way. What is the difference between the SMART objective that you see on the left of your screen, and the SMART-T objective that you see on the right of your screen. Now, in the initial SMART objective, you see the connotation that you want to decrease the rate of breast cancer mortality among women from 40 down to 38 by June 2022. In the second example towards your right, we've revised that language. Now it says, decrease the rate of breast cancer mortality from 50 to 45 among African American women by June 2022. So you see that just in this minor change of wording, you're specifically dealing with a subset of women who may be at risk. And in this element, you're actually showing a little bit of a better aspect of, is there an element of justice specifically in my objective? And also you get a chance to see if there's representation from socially and economically marginalized individuals and groups. So in this way, I want you to think beyond just simply a gender binary or thinking about socioeconomics related to race. I want you to also think bigger picture. When we talk about this element of justice, does this mean that there are marginalized religious groups, people who may be living with a physical or mental disability? Also, are there individuals who may be at risk because of their presence living in a rural or semi-rural area? Also, you want to think about, are there individuals who may also be at risk because of their age, whether they're very older or the very young? These are also people who are usually at risk. So I want you to think deeper when we talk about this idea of the I and the E in the sense of thinking beyond just simple concepts of gender, race, and ethnicity. Because the truth is, when we talk about vulnerable populations and public health, the definitions extend way beyond those simple strata that usually are discussed in terms of health interventions. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll see you more in the course.